welcome to our latest video in the Head in the Cloud series hosted by Citrus Global. Here with me today is Farrell Farthing, who is the Head of Domain Architecture at Sky, Deutschland. Farrell, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on as a guest today. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, as you said, I'm in working here sort of domain architect for Sky Deutschland, and prior to that, I spent many a year as a freelance consultant and made the switch to a permanent job this year.
Right, so an interesting year then for you in many ways, well, more ways than one. How was lockdown for you personally?
It was, I think the initial lockdown, I mean, in Germany, I think we started earlier than the UK, so we had a lockdown in March. The initial thing I think was a surprise how quickly it all came about. I think there was a lot of comments about things and people not taking it seriously, and I think it was very notable the first couple of days, just the absence of aeroplanes, cars. It really was surprising, and then when you get into it and things stabilize, it was something I think you sort of you find you can live with quite well. So yeah, interesting time, something I think many people never thought that they'd live through.
I agree. I think, it's safe to say we are living or have been living in a future history lesson, to be honest. It's been unique in so many ways, but a lot of frustrations for everyone in some way, shape or form. What were the main personal, business or project frustrations that you encountered?
I think on a personal level, I think it's when you have children, it's very difficult with the schooling. I think this being new, you understand that, the powers that be maybe didn't really have a plan in place, but trying to juggle homeschooling when you both work is and making sure the kids do enough is never easy.
Of course.
I think on a personal level as well, I think you really realize how much you miss the social contact, even if it's just chatting with other parents when your children are doing sporting activities or something. And yeah, on a business level, I think it's the same thing you miss. I think until you're not with your colleagues sort of, or people you work with or have to talk to on a day-to-day basis, and you're trying to do everything remote, I think you realize just how much is missed by just the little details of just the physically chatting to someone or going for a coffee or something, which you just can't do anymore.
That social interaction, I totally agree. And it's even as like silly as bouncing an idea off someone at the coffee machine, or saying to someone, do you fancy going to get some lunch during your lunch hour? And you don't have that luxury. Everything's done virtually, set up via Zoom, and then you're having to align with everyone. I know exactly what you mean. Yeah, for sure. Would you say that your priorities have changed at all or altered as a result of all of this?
Priority-wise, I think certain things have changed. Like I said, I went through the change myself to go back to take a permanent role.
Yeah.
I think priorities. I think you realize just like I said again how important the interaction is, and I think you try and make time for it. And I think even if you were working previously maybe the odd day from home. Yeah. I think when you're forced to do it 5 days a week, you sort of try and prioritize a bit of structure as well to your day. I think it becomes even more important when you're remote to try and sort of have a clear break. I think I'm lucky in that I actually have an office sort of separate from the house. So I do actually have that clear sort of, stepping out the door and going to an office, even if it's just, a few steps away.
Yeah.
I do sympathize with people who, a lot of colleagues who are trying to, 2 people working from home at either ends of a kitchen table or something. It's not easy.
That's exactly what I was doing, to be honest. Although it was a lot nearer to the kettle, so there was more cups of tea to be drank. But yeah, it was frustrating, absolutely. And there was times when it got to 2 o'clock and I'd not even had lunch, and I just thought, well, blimey, as you say, because you don't have that structure. Yeah, it is. It's very important to try and find that routine. I totally agree.
Yeah, very disciplined. I think we're trying to be disciplined. It's not always easy. And I think what you find is, I think it's one of the downsides of all the online meetings is that I think with a physical meeting, people allow for the 5 minutes to get to the next meeting room. If you run over, there's always people wanting the room, so they're waiting for you. And you don't have that on an online thing. You know, people can run on. And the other problem is it's easy for people to do a scattergun approach. So you go into a meeting thinking you've invited 3 people and find there's like 50 in there because everyone's invited everyone else.
Yeah.
And you just tend to lose the focus. So it needs a bit of discipline all around.
I totally agree. Sometimes I had back-to-back virtual meetings in the midst of lockdown, and when, as you say, when you have physical meetings, it's you come away and you can digest it a little bit better. And whereas if you go back-to-back virtual meetings, I've come out of like 2-hour ones and thinking, oh, what's happened there? And it's hard to, unless you've made notes throughout the course of it. It's difficult to digest it all.
Yeah,
Sure.
especially if the topics change. If you're mixing topics, I think you get to the end of the day and you try and have to, you know, assimilate what you've gathered over the various topics in the day and try and jot them down.
Totally agree. What would you say the biggest lessons are that you've learned?
I think it's very clear that things can function very well in a remote scenario. I think, you know, you realize that I think it's, in some ways, it's, for some people, it works out very nicely to have the freedom to adapt.
Yeah.
And as I said, you know, it still comes back to the same point, but I think you also realize that, you know, you really do miss the ability to get people together. There are certain things where you need like a whiteboarding session, and there are tools where you can do this, but still it's not quite the same as being there and, you know, everyone, you know, being able to get up and give their input. I think it's you know, yeah, I think that is something that obviously can't be replaced by purely a virtual setup.
Of course. So would you say, I mean, I know you said you've made that transition to going back to permanent, away from freelancing. Has COVID had a big part to play in that decision, do you think?
No, the decision I'd taken a while ago. It was just, I think the timing was a bit difficult prior to that. You know, even with I was still doing a freelance role when COVID struck. So
yeah,
instead of doing 1 day a week or a couple of days a week from home, I was doing 5 days a week from home.
Yeah.
That's, you know, didn't change. But then I started a new role, and being sort of across various projects in the domain means that you have to get to know a lot of people very quickly, a lot of topics very quickly, and that was quite difficult. I was lucky that basically a month after I'd started, there was a gradual return to the office, which made a huge difference, because I think otherwise it was going to be quite a struggle to get up to speed from a purely remote point of view.
There's been a lot of positivity in the news recently to do with the vaccine. Are you expecting a bounce back in the economy?
I am, but I don't think, at least in the German economy, I don't think saw such a huge hit. I mean, there were segments, you know, the holiday segments, the airlines obviously took a big hit and across the board, but you see a lot of other areas and it's not really changed. I mean, I think once people, you know, got over it, you know, the shops still stayed open, they still sell things, people are still buying cars, you know, so there are segments which have suffered. I think the vaccine will help. The question is whether you'll get a bounce back up to the full levels. I mean, I think after the vaccine coming, the next thing just around the corner is the Brexit negotiations, whichever side of the EU fence you find yourself on, it is going to have, to a varying degree, impact on both economies.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Time will tell with that one, for sure. What do you think is here to stay now as a result of all of this and this year?
I think a lot of companies will definitely prioritize a lot of remote working now. I think it's a twofold approach. I think some companies realize that it does work, it does give the flexibility, it's good for the workforce. I think others will also be, from a purely cost point of view, that they can just free up a lot of expensive real estate they might be paying for in big cities where they just don't need it. And I think what it will maybe do is a lot more companies which are spread across lands may not necessarily have to recruit all their corporate roles or their key roles from where they are located. I think it's perfectly clear now that, you know, you can have people spread around the world working. I mean, you will need occasionally to bring them together, but it's not, you know, someone has to fly every week or take the train every week. I think this, you know, the technology is really there to allow, you know, a certain percentage of remote working, and I think that will continue.
I totally agree. I've noticed a big difference in that as well when speaking to clients and hiring managers within Germany. Previously, they wanted people to be on site or candidates to be on site for, you know, a good high percentage of the project, whereas now, you know, I think, as you just said there, they've realised that the work can get done remotely and does get done and has to be done. So it's going to open up more doors for candidates who aren't living locally. Totally agree. For sure. What advice would you give to businesses moving forwards?
I think it would to find the balance. I think the remote working is good, but I think it shouldn't be seen as an excuse to squeeze every single second out of people. You know, I think there is a danger that the boundaries between home and work life become so blurred. You know, I think I would try and excuse me. I would encourage them companies to allow the flexibility, but then not to abuse it. Not to say, okay, you know, because someone's at home, I can expect them to work from, you know, also be available at 9-10 o'clock in the evening. I think it's good to try and also encourage the employers who may also feel that they're doing the right thing to actually, you know, have a sort of boundary and have a time when you say, okay, this is no longer work time. This is now my personal time.
Yeah. Yes, agreed. Finding that balance. Okay, definitely. What would you ask of a modern talent partner, given the new normal?
I think to understand that, to understand obviously how the current work situation is. I think that's, you know, a modern talent partner should be able to adapt to these, understand where they can probably promote people working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Also understand, obviously, for certain roles that it may not be the best option. And I think also, you know, what I generally see from modern talent partner is regardless of the situation, is an understanding that for the company as well, it's not always just the skills on the CV in front of them, but it's also quite often down to the personality and how people fit into certain cultures or to certain environments. That helps a lot, because just throwing in a lot of, you know, people with the good skills, they may be a great fit for one company and one culture, but not necessarily be the good fit for the next one. So I think it's also important that the talent partner sort of takes a bit of time to at least get a bit of a gut feeling for how a person is and how they would fit into the company they're putting them forward for.
Yeah. Okay. So an emphasis on culture as well as technical.
I think so. I think, you know, even more so. I think with I think it becomes maybe more of an emphasis with COVID, that people have to understand, you know, be able to fit into the culture and also adapt to the company, and also, you know, how the company may want you to work in COVID times.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Okay. Well, look, that's pretty much it from questions from me there. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I think nothing I'd like to add. Thank you.
No problem at all. Well, look, I want to thank you for your time and for being a guest on the Head in the Cloud series. Hopefully we'll start another series with a different theme. We can look back on these times with a bit of a smile on our face in the future.
Interesting to see when we're getting taught to our children or something, or our grandchildren, as having lived through Corona.
Yes, I totally agree, actually. Yeah, very much so. Well, I wish you the best success for the rest of the year and for 2021. And, you know, congratulations on obviously the permanent position this year.
Thank you.
You take care.